Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Sunday the 11th of July 2021 and we haven't last managed to get Greg on the phone. And we thought we would catch up and ask him whether he thinks, or not, if cryptos are going to replace gold and silver as money or monetary assets. This interview will also appear on the Crypto Plus channel tomorrow. So let's listen to what he has to say. Now firstly, earlier today we produced two videos. The first entitled, Is the Housing Bubble About to Burst? And the second, our gold and silver update and forecast for the week ahead, which is the same video as our weekly update we produced yesterday. So if you've listened to yesterday's video update, then no need to listen to today's. If you haven't, then please do so. We're very much aware that the football match where England is playing is currently on. We haven't got the result yet, but I can hear some cheering, so I'm assuming while I'm producing this, a goal has been scored. Let's wait and see if that's happened. Anyway, let's get back to crypto versus gold and silver interview with Greg. And we've placed the other video links in the description box below. Well, I'm happy to say we have Greg on the line today, and we are going to talk about a subject which we will publish both on our Illuminati Silver channel and our Crypto Plus channel because it pertains to both. And the question we're going to either ask and answer or resolve is, which is better for investors, gold or Bitcoin, precious metals or cryptocurrencies? Or is there room for both? Greg, good afternoon. What's your answer?
I think there's probably room for both, possibly even room for somebody to invent something else, like sending billionaires into space and not bothering with checking to see if they come back. The reason being that largely gold and silver fall into the category of people who are looking to ensure the future value of money in their own currency by backing it with gold or silver. Bitcoin, I don't think will reach that status. As you know, I've always seen investing in either as largely a gamble, but one that's fairly blue chip and safe if you're investing in gold, because taken over a long period of time, it has a track record that has held up very successfully, in fact, because realistically, you can buy gold now for almost exactly the same as you could buy gold in the mid-1900s, 1900, mid-1800s. It has kept pace with inflation on a global basis. I don't think anybody's made a lot of money out of gold, except people who have gambled on short-term rises and falls. Bitcoin seems to fall into much the same category, but it's not backed by anything solid. As an aside on Bitcoin, I was amused to find that there was somebody in Bitcoin who knew as little about the English language as I know about Bitcoin. They had named their company Nonce Finance, which may not mean a lot to Americans, but has a very dubious meaning in that it is sexual predators who usually are in prison for abuse of children. However, for those who don't know what nonce finance might be dealing in, it's Bitcoin, because nonce finance is a singular event. It's what the miners of Bitcoin are seeking to get back to the singular event. All far too complicated for me to even bother learning about.
Now, when you said very few people have made money in gold, except perhaps for speculators, you've missed out my favorite subject. Pumpers. Pumpers have made fortunes on gold and silver, Greg.
Hang on, they've made fortunes on gold or silver, not in gold and silver?
Well, by flogging it, they've managed. A lot of pumpers actually run gold and silver, either brokerages or shops or outlets, online outlets, particularly some of the bigger boys. And whenever gold goes up, they shout and scream, it's going to the moon. We're going to see $10,000 gold, $500, $1,000 silver any day now. Or they're selling reports on the back of that. When the prices are going down, they say, buy now. This is manipulation. It's being manipulated by the central banks. Buy it now before it skyrockets to the moon. So they've made an absolute fortune on gold and silver, quite frankly.
Yes, but they do need an almost infinite supply of idiots.
Are you saying gold and silver investors are idiots, Greg?
I'm saying the ones who follow the pumpers are.
Oh, right. Okay. But of course, the pumpers are right, because at the end of the day, countries have created exorbitant amounts of fiat currency. And we'll talk about Bitcoin and cryptos in a second in relation to that. But they've created these enormous, vast hordes of currency, which we all know ultimately leads to inflation and currency debasement. And we've produced videos in the past where we've shown that gold, more than silver, has been a better hedge on more occasions than silver for inflation. But silver's done well too. But we all know that silver goes to extremes compared to gold. When silver takes off, percentage-wise, it takes off considerably higher. And equally, when collapsing, it collapses considerably more. But in terms of regularity of inflation hedging, gold is better than silver. It's not a perfect hedge, but it is perhaps one of the best hedges we have available. But I can say to you, there are advocates now saying that the reason cryptocurrencies are so, shall we say, popular, apart from the fact that they're so easy to trade in, because you just do it online with your mobile phone, your tablet, or your PC, and it seems to have attracted the attention of the young. Now, I will say to you that a lot of these people are buying these things because they're starting off at 0.0000005 cents, and sometimes they make 1 cent, which gives them tens of thousands of percent increase. And other times, I mean, if you actually look at Bitcoin from when it first started a little over 10 years ago, it's gone up 1,000,000+%. So you can see the attraction, whereas gold has just sort of steadily risen over time with a few peaks and a few troughs in between. Cryptos have attracted the imagination. And once the technology has been sorted out and it's become more acceptable, more widely accepted, there is the argument, of course, that it will have greater levels of stability and inflation proofing, because Bitcoin, particularly, more so than many other cryptocurrencies, there are only going to be 21 million produced. And so far, 18.5 million exist. And so only another 2.5 million will ever be produced. So you could argue its rarity will be greater than gold, because as far as mining is concerned, there is almost, not quite, but almost an infinite amount of gold still to be mined, albeit you can only pull out X number of tons a year.
I think one thing that you're overlooking here is gold has a physical presence. Cryptos have no physical presence. But that doesn't matter when you think that if you walk into a casino, whether that is the gold market, silver market, assorted precious metals, coffee, tea, diamonds, or crypto, you can walk into different rooms and you can play blackjack, 21, roulette, or even if you want to go out on further on the edge with gambling, games like Fez. And throughout the Chinese world, fortunes are won and lost playing mahjong. It's just other forms of gambling.
So do you see perhaps in the future a future for gold and silver. Obviously, silver has its industrial component, and so does gold, but gold's industrial component is about 10%. Of course, you're making jewelry, component parts for industry, but the majority of gold is actually stored primarily for investment purposes, whereas with silver, depending at what point of time we're looking at things, its industrial component is 50 to 60%. So there will always be a need for silver. Of course there will. But from a monetary point of view, with the adoption of cryptos and the attraction to the younger people, is it not just the old fogies like us now who are looking at gold and silver for investment purposes, while the young are saying, do you know what? We'd rather stick our money into cryptos because they're the future. Does that not mean that gold and silver really, from an investment point of view, has had its day?
It depends what you're talking of as old fogies. Let's assume for a moment that some of the billionaires are old fogies. One scam that does look as if a group of the old fogies have got involved in is promoting climate change, and they are amassing land. When you take Melinda and Bill Gates, they own more agricultural land in America than any other individuals. This means that despite putting money from a foundation of the money that they've managed to hang on to beyond the tax man, they are investing huge quantities in propping up the various scams surrounding climate change. But of course they will get this money back because they're massive landowners. That's another way of gambling. There are different ways all over the place. Another huge way of gambling is electric cars, because realistically, they are not an intelligent or viable proposition, as possibly proven by the fact that Tesla, Elon Musk, hasn't made any money out of electric cars, because basically they are so expensive to produce. You just set a price for selling it at what price it will sell on the market. And then you live off of the massive subsidies you get from the government for every single electric car you sell. You then take that as a tax bonus and you toddle down the road to a car manufacturer who is not making lots of electric cars and getting this bonus, and you sell the bonus to him. Converting it's a sort of incredible Ponzi way of money laundering when you start to look at it closely. It's why we have Richard Branson in space at the moment. Space, well, 80 miles up, that's on the edge of our atmosphere. And we have Jeff Bezos, also has a rocket that he plans for going for a ride in with his brother in the next week or two. This is the new gamble. You put out these great ideas, and they are good ideas. It is amusing that these are all the people who are talking about the importance and dangers of CO2, etc., and we mustn't use fossil fuels. Yet Bill Gates had a conference just before the weekend of billionaires who flew in their private jets from all over the world to discuss climate change. So many of them flew in that the airspace had to be rescheduled and re-regulated because of the density of private jets. Now, this does make a bit of a nonsense, doesn't it? Especially when you think that they have similar conferences to discuss electric cars and how much this will save the planet. It won't save the planet a bean. It will do immense harm to the planet. We've heard it all before. You may recall, those of you who are old enough, how we were all going to hugely benefit the planet by reducing, in fact, stopping the use of petrol and using diesel. Now we find, as usual, that it did the complete opposite. Don't eat butter, it's bad for you. Eat margarine. What happens? You eat margarine and they tell you that margarine kills you because it's made out of vegetable waste products.
Well, we're going off the subject a little on Bitcoin and cryptos and gold. What I can do to tie that in, but I want to come off now the climate change because I know that's your favorite subject. But what was interesting is that a couple of days ago, Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, has been recommending Bitcoin and Bitcoin's blockchain. And you'll love this. He's even created a token for the blockchain, his own token. But this is the rub. His token is based on climate change issues. Okay. And he's put it on a blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, which is one of the least efficient and more climate damaging because the amount of electricity it costs to actually, or it uses to actually create a Bitcoin, it actually costs more than most of the other blockchains. So there is a degree of hypocrisy here. But going back to gold and silver, where do you think this lies? Because the crypto market at the moment, Greg, is hovering between 1.4 and 1.5 trillion dollars. Now, that's roughly the total amount of silver that exists on planet Earth. However, in terms of tradable silver, because I'm including all the silver ever mined and created into cutlery, into statues, into all sorts, into glass and everything else. Yeah. So in terms of the tradable silver for investment purposes, you're probably looking, I did actually quote a figure in a previous video, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but you're talking about a tenth of that, $100 billion or $150 billion worth. So crypto has already exceeded the tradable value of silver, and of course it's making a headway towards gold. So if cryptos go up now in value, as many are predicting, another 5 or 10 times, we're actually then going to have a cryptocurrency market capitalization the same level as the amount of total gold on planet Earth. Surely that's concerning, is it not, for precious metal investors?
It's very concerning, especially when you think that precious metal investors can equally be duped. You will remember Bunker Hunt and how popular he made himself in the precious metals game, while he was making himself a huge fortune by selling silver that didn't even exist. And if you look around, there's nothing new about this in any of these fields. Whether it was tulip bulbs that were gambled on what color they were going to be, and nobody actually planted them because somebody might find out that it wasn't going to be the ultimate black tulip. And really, everyone can live without a black tulip, even on a bad day. And we also have other areas where this has happened on a fairly regular basis. And the Weimar Republic printed so much currency that you needed a wheelbarrow full to buy a loaf of bread. It's only worth what you can maintain it at. As you said, it costs more in electric than it is making with certain of the assorted cryptos. But don't worry about it. Wind turbines cost far more fossil fuel than they could ever save in output making electricity. Solar panels. The main ingredient of a solar panel is coal. You can't make them without coal. Electric cars. Well, they're dependent on electricity. The only real source of viable electricity is nuclear or natural gas or oil or coal. Hydrogen still isn't featuring. It will do, but these are all marketing scams. Some of them relatively ethical, some of them totally unethical. Take, for instance, the batteries for these cars. They're huge. They are staggeringly expensive. They are grossly inefficient, and you require rare earth commodities that can only be obtained in limited countries, and the only people realistically mining these are people who are prepared to exploit virtual slave labor and child labor. China has very little ethics when it comes to this, and they are obtaining virtually all the available rare earths required for batteries from places like the Congo, with child labor and near slave labor. And the Western world, because the scam is started in the Western world, is turning virtually a blind eye to it.
Well, Greg, it's a fair point. I have to call this to an end now because our time is up. So am I to glean then that you regard all of this a scam and that really precious metals are just as much a gamble as cryptocurrencies, except that perhaps their past performance has been more certain? Is that what you're saying?
For many years. And gold mines opened and closed, working faces, dependent on the price. I've been into the safes in Swakopmund of De Beers, and there are sacks, and I mean sacks, of diamonds waiting to be cut and not being released onto the market because fundamentally it's a cartel between De Beers and the Russians as to releasing the amount that suits both of them to maximize diamonds. Richard Burton bought Elizabeth Taylor a diamond. As I recall, it was something like $3 million. And when they parted company, they were always going to sell this to build a hospital in Botswana. I think Botswana's still looking for the money now that both of them are long dead. But Elizabeth Taylor put this diamond ring on the market for auction, and she put it on at a price just short of the 3 million that they paid for it. Now, my figures may be wrong, but the concept stands. It failed to sell. She put it on again, having knocked a third off. It failed to sell, and she reduced it yet again at an auction. It failed to sell. When it was down to less than a third of what they'd paid for it, a member of the press approached Cartier, from whom they bought it, and said, look, this is about 25% of what you sold it for. Why aren't you buying it in? And the Cartier representative said, we are in the business of selling diamonds, not buying them.
Yeah, I have to say I have experience, not personally, but of people running jewelers. And very often the markups are not 100% or 200% as you get in some retails, but 500 minimum and sometimes 1,000%. So I do agree. The one thing I will say is that cryptocurrencies are based on technology, which is constantly evolving and will constantly change. So the cryptos of today may very well be gone tomorrow and something will have replaced it.
Yeah. How would you cope with tape to tape?
Yeah, gold and silver, I think, is pretty eternal. Greg, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Look forward to next time.
Indeed. Well, we hope you enjoyed that interview, though we did move off onto Greg's favourite subject of climate change once or twice. Do, if you enjoy it, give us a thumbs up. Please most certainly subscribe to our channel and press the bell sign just so you're notified of future videos. In addition to that, we can say, and proves that what we're doing is pretty much alive, England versus Italy football match, to which I referred in the introduction, is still continuing. And when I stated that I heard some cheers, that's because England actually scored a goal. And at the moment, the result is 1-0 to England. We shall see how that pans out. But whatever you do, you must listen to this video, especially if England wins, as a commemoration of that victory. Fingers crossed. Thank you once again. And do tune in to Crypto Plus as well, as we have quite a few videos appearing on that in the next day or so. Disclaimer. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.